to adapt popular horror novelist Stephen King's latest book about a supernatural car named Christine that takes out the bullies that persecute her owner, the put-upon nerd Arnie Cunningham. A haunted car movie could be considered a risky venture for the studio. However, Columbia's horror choices varied in content, theme, and style in the late 70s and early 80s. The studio most certainly followed trends and took on slasher films, including the sports-themed riff on the 10 Little Indians motif, Graduation Day, 1981, starring genre regular Christopher George, and the complex and beautifully crafted J. Lee Thompson Canadian venture, Happy Birthday to Me, 1981, which featured Melissa Sue Anderson of Little House on the Prairie, 1974 to 1983 fame, as well as Hollywood veteran Glenn Ford. But Columbia also tapped into the eco-horror fad that hit its peak in the 70s with the serious-in-tone Nightwing, 1979, which featured bubonic plague-carrying bats as its featured threat, and the directorial debut of James Cameron, who delivered a Euro-sleaze-style follow-up to Joe Dante's excellent socially aware Roger Corman-produced film Piranha, 1978, with Piranha 2: The Spawning, 1981. Adding to the mixed bag of varied horror films was When a Stranger Calls, 1979, which would feature one of the most terrifying opening scenes ever put to film, where a wide-eyed Carol Kane answered a constantly ringing telephone asking if she has checked the children. Night of the Juggler, 1980, starring James Brolin as a man chasing down a psychotic played by the googly-eyed Cliff Gorman, who has his kidnapped young daughter, and Eyes of Laura Mars, 1978, which incidentally would have a screenplay written by Christine director John Carpenter, which was a stylish American giallo starring Faye Dunaway, Tommy Lee Jones, Brad Dourif, and featuring a theme song by superstar Barbra Streisand. Christine, from 1983, would be yet another offering of the horror genre for Columbia, and here this brilliantly conceived and constructed character study and acute commentary on the role of possession would become a cult classic, a critical triumph, and a perfectly realized adaptation of Stephen King's rich and provocative novel. With the Columbia Pictures logo making way for the credits, white over black, John Carpenter's Christine opens much like many films of the late 70s and early 80s, simple, ambiguous, and evoking a sense of ominous foreboding. When you look at this trend, it seems to surface in varied films that have directors at the helm wanting to keep the sense of drama at bay, because the audience will be punched in the face with it as the film moves forward. Michael Anderson's Orca, 1977, does this. It features the credits rolling over a black screen with the haunting sound of whale cries simmering in the audio distance, while Alan Parker's Fame, 1980, features an even more foreboding soundscape where the High School of Performing Arts is just waking up and coming to life, before we are faced with the onslaught of the grueling audition sequence that sets off the film. Here in Christine, John Carpenter has his credits sequence accomplished by the roar of the Plymouth Fury's mighty engine. She is birthing. She is breathing. She is fuming. In a film, much like the aforementioned Fame, that is so musically driven, it is a clever choice from Carpenter to have the title sequence music-free and completely devoted to the sound of a revving machine. In this regard, it makes the music, the first number being Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood and the Destroyers, even more dynamic and forceful, just like Alan Parker's use of a quiet opening, followed by a monologue from the play The Dark at the Top of the Stairs, is all the more disconcerting when he then hits his audience with a loud, energetic frenzy